Hi, and thanks for giving me a little bit of your time. I want to talk a little bit about how the sum is greater than the parts and how that applies to Symmetry's products. Symmetry has about 50 different products, and so obviously it would take way too long to give you a lot of information about all of them. So I'm going to focus in, and we're going to talk about Genesis. First of all, this is our track team, our Technical Research and Advisory Committee. We're the folks that look over your products and make sure that they work for you. We have Dr. Frederick Vanini, who's a board-certified cardiologist and a thoracic surgeon. We have Dr. Deke Kendall, who's a family physician and a specialist in a number of different areas in Oriental medicine. And of course myself. We're the most visible faces of the track team. I work with a number of people behind the scenes in both lab and research, as well as manufacturing, to make sure that we always bring you the very best. The Symmetry headquarters is right here. We're in a little subdivision of San Jose called Milpitas, about an hour south of San Francisco. And this is our president and founder, Mr. Rudy Revak. He's the one that makes everything successful and run right. It's his ideas that bring you this tremendous company. I want to give you a little background on some things that are asked frequently and some things that you're going to be seeing on our products. One is GMP, and this is something our products have always been GMP. But we're just recently starting to put this on the product because originally nobody knew what it was. Of course, GMP stands for Good Manufacturing Practices. You also see CGMP, which means Current Good Manufacturing Practices. They're interchangeable, they mean the same thing. There's a number of procedures that you have to adhere to in order to be certified GMP. Our products, again, have always been certified GMP. It's just recently people started to recognize it, and so we're putting that on our product. Along with that, a frequently asked question, very frequently, not only in the United States but around the world, people will ask, are your products FDA certified? And the answer to that is, there's no such thing. The FDA certifies drugs. These are food supplements. Food supplements are governed by a law called DSHEA. And DSHEA makes sure that all of the ingredients have to be on the GRAS list. GRAS means generally recognized as safe. However, we voluntarily manufacture all of our products according to FDA drug standards. Our lab is inspected and certified to manufacture drugs not only in the United States, but 35 countries around the world. And here we have a couple shots of some things happening in the plant, maybe making some male balance or something, and you can see we have clean room conditions, sealed rooms, white glove treatment. Here we have one of the pill manufacturers. It's completely enclosed in glass. The purity and the cleanliness are just really untouchable. Here we have a line maybe making some female balance, and you can see the detailed, the equipment, the cleanliness that goes into this. This is a shot of our manufacturing facility down in Orlando, Florida, where we make the liquids. And here we're making some of the Genesis sample size bottles, labeling those, and we have some of the full-size bottles up there as well. In order to get this certification, we have a number of written standard operating procedures, and one that kind of blew people away when they saw it down in Orlando was just the quality of water. Many times when somebody comes in to make a product, they just turn the tap on and whatever they have, that's what they use water-wise. Our water comes in and it goes through a pretty elaborate filtration system. First of all, it goes through a water softener. After it goes through the water softener, it goes through a 5-stage carbon filtration system. Once it goes through that, it goes through reverse osmosis. After it goes through reverse osmosis, it goes through an ultraviolet light treatment. After it's been through that, the water is flash pasteurized. Now, our product isn't flash pasteurized, which could denature some of the proteins, break some of the enzymes down, but the water is before we start to use it, just to ensure the cleanliness of our starting block here. We also have something called better than organic. Many people will ask, are your products organic? And the real answer to that, for me at least, is the term organic doesn't mean a whole lot. First of all, there's some difference of opinion from the East Coast and the West Coast of the United States what that term should fully mean. You get outside the United States and it really is all over the board on what that might mean or could mean. But what we have found is that if something's organic, that means it's certified by the farm that they didn't use herbicides and pesticides. However, that does not protect against groundwater contamination, rainwater contamination, soil contamination, heavily handling contamination. I'm sure many of you are aware of some of the problems that have been in the news about, salmonella and E. coli and things from just handling. All of our material comes into us and it's tested by gas chromatography, high density chromatography, lipid chromatography, and we're looking for the presence of active ingredients, we're looking for herbicides, we're looking for pesticides, heavy metals, viruses, bacteria, and if we find any of those objectionable materials, we reject it. And so for me, that makes us better than organic, because we're not just relying on somebody's word, we're actually testing everything for the presence of the herbicides and pesticides. Would you eat this? Here's a list of chemical components. Take a quick look at this and let me know if this is something that you might eat. And I know a lot of people like to read labels now, and they look at things, and I know many people would look at this and there's some things in there that they might not be real familiar with, and they'd be thinking, maybe I don't want to put that in my mouth. This is standard garden variety thyme. This is what's in a plant. And I just want people to keep their perspective when they start seeing things, that they realize that something as simple as the herb thyme has maybe hundreds of active ingredients, and some of those things might not be things that easily pop into your mind, but that doesn't mean that they're not natural, and it doesn't mean that they're not good for you. What we're really going to talk about today is reductionist science. Reductionist science wants to break things down. Like with ginseng, what is the magic ingredient in ginseng that makes ginseng ginseng? There are over 300 active ingredients, vitamins, minerals. There's 8 distinct ginsenosides. And reductionist science tries to find out what is the one magic ingredient that makes ginseng do the job, whatever that job is. Similarly, we've had this same kind of discussion with NeuroCom. NeuroCom is a product we've had for some time. It's based on St. John's wort. Some years ago, Western medicine got very interested in St. John's wort. There was a great deal of clinical evidence showing that it's very beneficial for anxiety, stress, clinical depression, those kinds of things. And as you can see, there's quite a number of active ingredients. And when they first came out with, selling St. John's wort extracts or pills in the well, not necessarily the pharmacy, but in the health food stores even, or in some of the grocery store shelves, they were trying to sell you something that they thought was the active ingredient. So you weren't really buying St. John's wort, you were buying St. John's wort standardized for hypericin. And it was a couple of years later that they came out and they said, you know what, we've been looking and we think maybe hypericin isn't really the active ingredient that we want. We might want this hyperifone, and this might be the active ingredient that we want. Well, Symmetry doesn't practice this reductionist science. We've always processed whole herbs, which is the traditional way of doing it, but we also marry that with some of the Western science, and we have always given you standardized ingredients of both of those right from the start, because I'm not smart enough to know what the one active ingredient in anything is. I think it's probably everything together. So here's a little short history of reductionist science and how that applies to us in our daily life, as well as to your Symmetry products. First of all, nutrients. Nutrients have only been around since the 19th century. Obviously they've been there forever, but we've only known what they were since the 19th century. And this came forth from Dr. William Prout, who was an English physician and a food chemist. He discovered 3 principal constituents of food: macronutrients, protein, fat, and carbohydrates. And of course, that's the same today. It was in 1842 that Justus von Liebig, who was one of the founders of organic chemistry, he added a couple minerals to these big 3, and he declared in 1842 the mystery of animal nutrition, how food turns into flesh and energy, was solved. Knew all there is to know. He developed something called vitalism. He also discovered these macronutrients in the soil: nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. We refer to that as NPK. And he said this is all plants need to grow. With that in mind, he developed extractum carnis. This is everything that we need for the code of life for plants and animals to live. He put it in a meat extract. Today we would call that a bouillon cube. He also developed the first baby formula, which is cow's milk mixed with some wheat flour, malt flour, and potassium bicarbonate. Babies that were given this formula often got sick because there's no vitamins, there's no essential fatty acids, and there was no amino acids. Obviously, he hadn't discovered everything. We can look at the case of limeys. This is what English sailors were called because on long ocean voyages they would often get sick. Even though they had the protein, the carbohydrates, and the fat, something was missing. It was later discovered that something was vitamin C. They would get scurvy, their teeth would fall out, their bones would go bad, they could even die. And the vitamin C cured scurvy. And they started taking limes on their voyages to get the vitamin C, hence they were called limeys. You could also, of course, get this from lemons, oranges, or even potatoes. It was Casimir Funk, who was a Polish biochemist. He actually discovered vitamins in the early 1900s. Vitamins, vita, comes from vital for life, and amines is an organic compound organized around nitrogen. So a vitamin is an organic compound that you cannot manufacture in your body. You have to get it from your diet. And if you don't get it, you'll die. This is the definition of a vitamin. You must have it for life. Vitamins, each one then was discovered as a cure or maybe a prevention for a specific disease, like vitamin C for scurvy, B vitamins for beriberi, vitamin A for night blindness, and on and on and on. Well, today the FDA says that no nutrient or food supplement, no vitamin or herb can be sold to cure or treat any disease. And of course, this is just the opposite of what the actual definition of a vitamin is. It does, in fact, cure disease, prevents disease. We also have the lipid hypothesis. Scientific opinion was that the consumption of fat and dietary cholesterol was responsible for the rising rates of heart disease. This idea started in the 1950s. And it was embraced by the American Heart Association. And in 1961, they came out with what they called the prudent diet. It was low in fat and cholesterol from animal products. Senator McGovern, he was from South Dakota, which is a large state for cattle ranching and meat growing, obviously. He was actually voted out of office connected with this whole thing. He got voted out by the beef lobby because the prudent diet was talking about reducing your consumption of meat and dairy. And he dared to say you shouldn't be eating meat and dairy. And of course the cattle ranchers got together, a political action group, and he was gone. They changed then politically, and they don't talk about specific foods. They now say choose meats, poultry, and fish that will reduce your saturated fat intake, rather than saying don't eat certain things. Speak no more of foods, only certain nutrients. We also, of course, have the sugar lobby. The sugar lobby recommended that 25% of our calories come from free sugars. The World Health Organization says it should be no more than 10%. The U.S. sugar lobby worked with the Bush administration to cut WHO funding unless they changed to their way of thinking. So again, these types of decisions are not made according to what's really best for your health. They're decided on what's best for somebody's pocketbook. Butter versus margarine. We all know that margarine was a cheap and inferior substitute for butter. It's a fake food. To do this, we blast healthy vegetable oil with hydrogen to make it spreadable, and it also extends its shelf life. These are some things that manufacturers obviously like. When they make it into a hydrogenated oil, they form trans fatty acids. And unfortunately, the trans fatty acids are more dangerous than what they're supposed to replace. So we have food adulteration. In the 1800s, there were 5 states that passed laws that oleomargarine must be dyed pink. No one was going to be fooled into thinking it was real food or real butter. And in 1938, the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act said that all imitation food must be labeled as imitation so people would know it was actually a fake food. But in 1973, the food industry got that law thrown out. Surprisingly, the American Heart Association was instrumental in helping the fake food law get thrown out. They wanted modified food for what they believed were health advantages. They pushed for hydrogenated vegetable oils. The American Heart Association wanted us to have more hydrogenated fats, which actually caused more heart attacks. Is it good for you? Strangely enough, a banana can make no health claims, but cereal can. Recently, the Mars Corporation endowed a chair in chocolate science at the University of California, Davis. We'll soon see the FDA-approved health claims on candy bars, but not on food. Your good diet is making you sick. We got fatter between the end of World War II and 1976, but we actually reduced our consumption of animal fat intake during that time. We cut out lard, we cut out beef tallow. We increased fat from vegetable oils like margarine and hydrogenated oils. We tried to eat what we believed was the prudent diet, and it's killing us. So we have this lipid hypothesis. 60 years we've been trying to reform the way we eat. Dietary fat is responsible for chronic disease. This has made not only our food worse, but our bodies and our health worse. We are fatheads. The human brain is 60% fat. Every neuron in your brain is sheathed with a layer of fat. Without fat in the diet, you couldn't absorb fat-soluble vitamins like A, D, K, E. You can't pass through the intestinal wall unless you have that fat. Fats also protect your heart from heart disease. Oh, you can't see the forest. For half a century, we've been replacing fat in our diets with carbohydrates. And the lipid hypothesis blames heart disease, obesity, cancer, diabetes, and so on fat. But the real cause is the refined carbohydrates. Friendly fire. Obesity and diabetes are the unintentional consequences of the war against dietary fat. In 1998, the New England Journal of Medicine came out and said that most of the decline in deaths from heart disease were not the cause of dietary changes, of lifestyle changes, but it was changes in medicine that recognized and treated the heart disease first. And so now you don't die from a heart attack. You live with heart disease. You're on medication for the rest of your life. In many cases, some of the problems we're talking about are because of a flawed study design. Studies that look at diets with reduced fat or reduced protein or reduced whatever, they fail to look at what was increased when they took something out. When reductions are made, we've often increased refined carbohydrates as a replacement for what was removed. Then we have the meat question. Is eating meat bad? Is red meat bad for us? Is it the meat, or maybe is it the grain that's fed to the domestic livestock? The corn and grains that are given to make animals fat. They give these things to fatten them up quick and get them to market. May that not also make us fat? Or is it the growth hormones we give them? Or maybe it's the antibiotics because of the feed we give them. You are what you eat, but you are what you eat eats too. And what we mean by that is that cows and sheep evolved as ruminants. They were meant to eat grass. We grain feed them to fatten them up. So is that the problem? Or is it what the meat pushes off the plate? It's not that we eat meat, but are we eating too much meat? And by eating the meat, we get rid of the vegetables and the fruits and the other things that should also be in the diet. When we look at diet studies, we have to be honest. People lie. Often people underestimate what they eat. They don't know how much they eat. Often they forget things they eat. And often they just out and out white lie about it. Maybe even sometimes to themselves, they don't think about what they really put in their mouths. The average amount of calories that most people own up to is 2,000. But the industry and science tells us that the average amount produced in what people consume is about 3,900. which means most people are eating twice as much every day as they believe they are, or at least that they'll own up to what they're eating. New light on some relationships between soil mineral deficiencies, low vitamin foods, and some degenerative diseases. This is a book that was written in 1932 by Dr. Weston Price. He was a dentist, and he found a number of problems dental-wise that he related to deficiencies in the diet. He was something of an anthropologist, and he started to travel around the world looking at the healthy diets of people around the world, comparing it to the United States. One of the things that he found that's very important is that modern civilization returns exceedingly little of what it borrows, meaning that we put back little into the ground, if anything, that we take from it in our food. That means that our food has little which it can yield to us. Recent studies by the United States Department of Agriculture, some of them have suggested that 90% of the men in the United States are deficient in zinc, because the ground that would grow the wheat or the other materials, the rice, the zinc's simply not there. It's been taken out, it hasn't been replaced. And of course, zinc is incredibly important for male prostate function, and so our diets are tending to give us prostate problems. Zinc is also very important for memory, for mood, and even sex hormones. This then becomes one of the really big reasons that we should be supplementing in Ultra Vitality or our Future Star or Fruitamins to make sure that we're getting that zinc along with all the other things into our bodies. Fructose increased consumption by about 25% in the last 30 years of sugar. In raw fruit, the fiber slows absorption, plus if you're eating the fruit, there's of course at least micronutrients. But in today's diet, we're eating about 50% sugar in one form or another. And of course, this is one of the reasons why we have things like our Wow Pack, which will help people deal with their weight and their sugar issues. More bang for our buck. More sugar yields more calories. More sugar yields more insulin. When your insulin goes up, it spikes and comes down. And when it drops, it makes us think we're hungry, so we have to eat again. So now we want to eat more often, and the things that we're eating make us want to eat more often, and they drive our sugar levels up. This fructose is metabolized in the liver. It's turned into glucose, it's turned into triglycerides, it makes us fat, it gives us diabetes. And of course, we have some really good products in the Wow and the Ultra Vitality and the Genesis, which can help control these things. Metabolic syndrome. This is the real root of the disease of civilization. It's us eating all these things that we shouldn't be eating that give us the diseases of the third world, the United States. They did a little study with Aborigines in 1982 in Derby, Western Australia. They took 10 middle-aged, overweight, diabetic Aborigines, and they moved them from town back into the bush. They went back to a native diet. And in 7 weeks, right, they're just shy of 2 months, not even 2 full months. The results? All of them lost weight, close to 20 pounds each. Their blood pressure dropped, their triglycerides became normal, their omega-3 in their tissues all went up, and their diabetes was either greatly improved or completely gone. What was their bush diet? Seafood, birds, kangaroo, grubs, larvae, turtles, crocodile, yams, figs, and bush honey. Maybe some of those things we don't want to be adding to our diet. But this is the diet they were eating, the civilized diet, the town diet. White flour, white sugar, white rice, carbonated drinks, beer and other alcohol, powdered milk, cheap fatty meats, predominantly Spam, white potatoes, onions, and some fruits and vegetables. And obviously this is where their problem came from. White sugar, white flour, white rice, carbonated drinks. My advice to people on how to eat a good diet, eat like your ancestors. Different people from around the world have different types of diets, and recent research has shown that GI systems can kind of evolve within 100 years. So if your ancestors have been in a place for 100 or more years, they're going to adapt to their surroundings. So the best diet that you can eat is probably the way that your grandparents ate. And when I say that, often if I'm, say, talking to somebody from Asia, they'll say, oh, I eat like my grandparents, I eat rice 3 times a day. Well, the difference is that their grandparents weren't eating white rice. They were eating brown rice. They've only been eating white rice, in the last 20, 30, 40 years. And this is something that causes a problem. You need to not only eat what your ancestors eat or ate, but also eat it the way they ate it. And when we talk about organic, which a lot of people are into, some interesting statistics come up. Recent studies have found that the average item of organic produce traveled further to the supermarket than regular produce. And ideally, when people are talking organic, they're talking about eating locally, something that's grown within 20 miles of their house. But that doesn't turn out to be what happens in reality. So one of my main kind of tenets for how to eat right is white ain't right. White was for the rich. White was a sign of purity. And part of the purity was that when people were eating rice or flour or something, it often had all kinds of dirt in it. And so it was actually dirty. And when people cleaned that up, it obviously became lighter. And then when they started to refine it, it was whiter. And so they associated the white color with purity. And the problem with that is, as we get that further refinement, an absence of dirt, you also get an absence of other impurities and an absence of nutrition. Another example of this kind of reductionist science where we pull things down is the sun kills. And this has been a big thing for the last 30 years, how they've looked at, hey, the sun causes cancer and it's going to kill us. You have to be protected all the time. I would ask, if that's really true, why are there any humans here? For 100,000, 200,000 years, we were running around mostly naked in the sunshine. Shouldn't we have all died? There's new studies that say that the sun actually prevents skin cancer. That when we're in the sun, we make vitamin D, which protects against skin cancer from the sun. The real thing here is it the sun that's a problem, or is it a lack of antioxidants in our modern diet? It is a bad thing to go out in the sun and get sunburned. But sun exposure and even some minor burning, if we have the proper diet, the proper antioxidants, it protects our bodies from this. And those things are lacking in the modern diet, and it's so important that people are supplementing with things like the Ultra Vitality to make sure that we have what we need to protect ourselves. In the U.S., life expectancy as of 2007, we're 45th in the world, which is a disgrace. We are below Israel, Jordan, Bosnia, and Bermuda. You would be better off living in one of those countries, living longer, which is just a sad thing. Most Americans, of course, think we have the best diet and the best medicine and everything in the world. We're actually 17th in the world in terms of infant mortality. So we really need to wake up and see some of the things that we're doing aren't working the way we think we are. Right now, we're looking at a 336% increase in diabetes. People that take supplements are generally healthier than other people. This is coming from the Journal of the American Medical Association. Experts are recommending that we take supplements. We often hear you don't need to take supplements, all you have to do is eat right. And I just heard this on the news yesterday, so I mean it's always there. And the truth is, it's true. If you eat right, you don't need to take supplements. However, we haven't found anybody that eats right. A study was done, there's the nurses study, there's a Framingham study, there's a number of studies that have been done. They looked at the diets of people. They can't find anybody that's getting 100% of just 7 vitamins and minerals. And we're looking at 17 to 24 vitamins and minerals that you got to have every day. And 100% is entry level. And here these people are not even close. No one's getting 100% of just these 7. This is why they recommend that we take a supplement on a daily basis to give us all the things that we need and we're not getting from our diet. Let's take a look at Dr. Death's scorecard. Here's the things that are going to kill you. Men, heart disease, cancer, stroke, accidents, lung disease, HIV, diabetes, suicide, and homicide. Women, it's heart disease, cancer, stroke, lung disease, diabetes, accidents, Alzheimer's disease, kidney disease, and blood poisoning. The interesting thing when we look at this is, well, on both sides, we have heart disease, cancer, and stroke as 1, 2, 3, and then we also have diabetes as in the top killers. And the really important thing about this is, which one would you like to have? Which one do you want to die from? Because you get to pick. You decide by what you put in your mouth or what you don't put in your mouth which disease you'll get. And the sad thing is, most Americans want to die of a heart attack, because that's number one. So that must be what they picked. And the really scary thing about heart disease is that the very first symptom for 30% of all people with heart disease, the first symptom is they're dead. They grab their chest and they're on the ground and they ain't getting up no more. So here's the 3 leading causes of disease in the United States: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. What we're eating at these meals, or what we're choosing not to eat, is what gives us the diseases. One of the things that's worse than breakfast, lunch, and dinner is skipping breakfast and having lunch and dinner, or having breakfast and skipping lunch. When we skip meals, it gives a great deal of stress to our body. It often will produce cortisol. It'll make us gain weight. Do we eat out? Studies show that 61% of the women in the United States eat out at least twice a week. The amount of money spent on fast food in 1970 was $6 billion. By 2000, that had risen to over $110 billion. I think today we're looking at $150 billion plus being spent on fast food. Veggies? The number of veggies the government recommends daily is at least 4. Now, that's not what science recommends. Science and nutritionists recommend that we eat 5 to 7 veggies every day. Government says, they're not going to do that. We'll recommend 4. Unfortunately, the average woman eats 1 or 2, and the average man eats none or 1. Sugar? The average woman eats 152 pounds of sugar a year. Ladies, you eat your weight in sugar. That's why you're so sweet. On any given day, only 10% of Americans will eat a green, leafy vegetable. 50% of all the vegetables eaten today will be a potato, as a French fry or a potato chip. 25% of all the veggies eaten today will be a tomato, as ketchup, pizza sauce, or spaghetti sauce. 75% of all our veggies today will be ketchup and French fries. And what's really kind of scary to me about this is these are numbers that come from government websites. The FDA, different websites are telling us that 25% of all veggies are tomatoes. Tomatoes aren't veggies, they're fruits. And so here we have our government can't even tell the difference between a fruit and vegetable. Today, scientific journals tell us that type 1 diabetes is linked to infant feeding, that type 2 diabetes can be controlled and cured with diet. Heart disease can be reversed with diet. Kidney stones prevented with diet. Breast cancer is linked to hormonal blood levels, which are diet-relinked. Antioxidants are linked to better mental performance in old age, which come from diet. But when we're talking diet, don't look for a magic bullet. The sum is greater than the parts. Reductionist science is bad science. When we start looking for, this is all you have to take, and there's a lot of unfortunate companies out there that come around and say you only have to take this one thing and it's the only thing you need. If you ever hear that, run. There is no one thing. You need vitamins and minerals, both macro and micro. You need antioxidants, thousands of them. You need essential fatty acids. You need fiber, on and on and on. There are a number of things that you need for good health, which is why it's important that you're supplementing on a regular daily basis. Symmetry is about this synergy. 1 + 1 can equal 6. We have known for some time, there's been studies that have been done that show that saw palmetto can work better actually than the drugs for prostate problems. That when men were taking 325 milligrams of saw palmetto every day, usually within 1 week they would see an improvement. And African pygeum also gives improvement to prostate problems. And people were taking between 250 and 300 milligrams a day. But a study was done and they gave people just 100 milligrams of saw palmetto with 100 milligrams of African pygeum. The results were that it was 6 times more effective than either of them. So you're taking 2/3 of what is considered a therapeutic dose of either, and it's 6 times more effective. A little of each is better than a lot of either. And I'm going to tell you this is kind of a synergistic kind of serendipity kind of thing. Last night before I went to bed, I was reading an article and it was talking about pomegranate extracts. And it was saying that if they do an extract of pomegranate and give you one of what they feel is just a fraction of ellagic acid as a concentrated dose, it doesn't work as well as the whole extract. And so that's exactly what we're talking about here, is this synergy that happens when you have everything that Mother Nature gives you and intends you to have. This synergy is symmetry. And our genesis, it's always been about resveratrol, but never just resveratrol. We also talk about ellagic acid. Our product is standardized for both resveratrol and ellagic acid. We have a total of 19 blended herbs in the Genesis. And resveratrol, which of course is one of the things that we've been hanging our hats on for this, one of the things that made Genesis the #1 selling product the world over, is the resveratrol, which is a natural compound that's found in grapes, mulberries, pomegranates, but especially red wine, because the fermentation of the wine concentrates and brings out the resveratrol. And that can protect against cancer and cardiovascular disease. It acts as an antioxidant. It's an anti-mutagen. It prevents DNA damage, and it's anti-inflammatory. We also provide you with ellagic acid. Ellagic acid has very strong anti-cancer properties. It causes apoptosis or cell death, and it acts as an antioxidant for the whole body. It helps the liver break down and remove cancer-causing substances from the blood. Recent research has suggested that anybody doing chemo or radiation therapy should be supplementing with ellagic acid to protect the liver from damage from those therapies. Of course, if they'd been taking this before, they might not have the problem. It can help prevent or treat cancer in humans. Ellagic acid has also been shown to help reduce heart disease, birth defects, liver problems. It promotes wound healing, and one study found that it could actually help pick up plaque or remove plaquing in the arteries. Some recent studies have also focused on its benefit for prostate cancer. So Genesis is made up of PhytoPure. This is our primary ingredient. PhytoPure is pomegranate, grape, apple, and aloe. This forms the base. And then to that, we have a secondary ingredient, which is our Genesis Herbal Blend. This is 15 scripturally based herbs which are put into the PhytoPure. Each of these has hundreds of active phytonutrients which yield thousands and thousands of active ingredients in this Genesis blend. The magic or the miracle molecules that we've always sold are the resveratrol and the ellagic acid. There are thousands of things, but you can't sell thousands of things. You have to focus on something. We focus on the resveratrol and the ellagic acid because of the tremendous amount of science that's been done on them. We also standardize the product. We know that both of these are present in the PhytoPure, but we go back in and add a standardized amount into each so that we can guarantee how much is in every single serving. Some companies will tell you that their product, they sell you antioxidants. Well, both of these are antioxidants, and we have thousands more. Some companies say they have glyconutrients. We get that from the aloe, plus we have the phytonutrients that we have in all of the other ingredients. Some companies say we have polysaccharides. Yes, we have polysaccharides plus the other antioxidants. Polyphenols. Yes, we have polyphenols. So it doesn't matter which group or classification of antioxidants or beneficial ingredients somebody was selling. We have that plus all the ones that they weren't selling. This is the herbal blend that we put in our Genesis. These are the 14 extra herbs that we add to this. And there are books written about, and many books written about wheatgrass or barley grass, or a lot of scientific research recently on cinnamon helping to control diabetes by a number of different ways. So each of these has been researched, and that's why it's been added to our Genesis herbal formula. However, we now go beyond resveratrol. One of the things that's always made me very proud to be associated with Symmetry is Rudy lets me never be done with the product. I'm always looking at things, and it's not just me. We have other members of our track team that are thinking and looking at things, and even members of our staff are always thinking about, well, gee, could you do this with the product, or could you do that? And we're always researching, looking for ways to make it better nutritionally, or even better ways to manufacture something. And now we are going beyond resveratrol. We are introducing Genesis with Extranol 24. Extranol 24 is a triple patented process or ingredients that we're putting into our new Genesis formula. It's everything that it was before, plus we're adding whole wine extracts, provenols. We're adding whole melon extracts, Extramel. And we're adding a unique and patented delivery system to assure the bioavailability of all of our ingredients. The Extranol 24 and the provenols. The provenols are from red wine that come from a Rhone region in France. It's an area that is very harsh, actually, but this harsh region ensures that the resveratrol content in the grapes is going to be very high. It also increases the polyphenol content. And plant polyphenols contain a multitude of compounds. They're one of the most important and widely distributed groups of compounds in plants. But wine concentrates those, so we get a large quantity of polyphenols in wine if they were in the grapes. For the provenols, when we're looking at this, we often see that other companies will give you grape seed extract, or maybe they'll sell grape skin extract. Well, we have the skins and the seed, and we put that into a pulp, and then there's a fermentation process. Now, the fermentation process is very important. When you're doing any kind of an herbal extraction or biological extraction, you get both fat-soluble and water-soluble. And so in all of our herbal products, we do a double extraction process. We have a water-soluble extraction process and a fat-soluble. Fat-soluble things, in this case, they're done with the alcohol fermentation. They pull out the fat-soluble polyphenols and put those into the red wine. So we do all of that. Then we have a patented process that removes all of the things, including all of the alcohol. What we're left with is a 95% minimum concentration of polyphenols. So what we have in the provenols is a high concentration of resveratrol, polyphenols, and what's really amazing here is now we have a good source of catechin, epicatechin, and epicatechin gallate. These are something that's usually found in green tea, and there's a great deal of research that shows that this helps boost the immune system, it can help with weight loss, it helps fight off stomach problems. There's just a whole host of things that the catechins are good for. These are now also in Genesis. The Extranol 24 and the polyphenols have a very diverse pharmacological spectrum of activity. They have cardiovascular properties, they help prevent heart disease. They're also very good against oxidation of circulating lipids. That's the LDL cholesterol. They don't allow that to oxidize, which is really what causes plaquing. They reduce platelet aggregation and increase blood fluidity. This can help reduce your stroke risk. We also have an antioxidant and plate anti-aggregate activity. This is beneficial for atherosclerosis. And it causes vasodilation. It opens up the blood vessels so that you get a greater blood flow. This can help reduce blood pressure, but it also, because it gets more blood everywhere, it helps your brain think. It helps relieve muscle stress. And because you get more oxygen and more nutrients, it helps anything heal faster. The Extranol 24 also has patented Extramel. Extramel is a super ORAC melon extract. It's specifically bred for antioxidant. This is a very special melon that was around in ancient times in northern Africa, and then they found that this melon lives much, much longer. It doesn't spoil, it doesn't go bad. And so as they found that it had this high concentration of these antioxidants, they actually bred the melon to increase that function. And today, this group that we're working with, they don't eat these. They only grow them so that we can have them to put in Extranol 24. This melon pulp concentrate is very rich in SOD, which is a primary antioxidant enzyme, and glutathione, which is often called the master antioxidant. So extranol and exercise, they've done studies, and the problem with exercise is that we have a high consumption of oxygen. When we breathe much faster when you're exercising. That's taking in more oxygen, and that means that we're producing reactive oxygen species, free radicals. So we're producing a high number of free radicals. They did this study, which I particularly like because I know many of you are aware that after 35 years I'm still doing martial arts. They did this with professional martial artists. And they found that when these people are working out and they're taking Extramel, it has a significant impact on the improved oxidative state in the body after training. They've also looked at the overall applications from taking this, and what they find is it's a very good antioxidant overall. It helps prevent aging, so it's good for anti-aging, cell damage, skin beauty, intense sun exposure. It can protect your body from that. Very good for stress, tiredness, well-being, cognitive and physical consequences such as pain and poor concentration. And very good for intense physical exercise and even joint pain. In this study, they looked at giving Extramel to people and exposing them to intense sunlight. And they found that there was a 40% reduction in the inflammation in the body by the people that got the Extramel. We also have glutathione, this master antioxidant. It's a small protein that's composed of 3 amino acids, cysteine, glutamic acid, and glycine. If you have an abundance of these in your body, you can make your glutathione if the process is working right. So you have to have all the little components, and your body has to be working right to make it. There are 3 major roles or activity for the glutathione in the body. It is a powerful antioxidant, it's an immune booster, and it's a detoxifier. And even cells in the healthiest of individuals have to constantly replace and rebuild their glutathione supply in order to keep them healthy. So this master antioxidant, it's been used to treat infertility, cancer, cataracts, and HIV. It is classified as an orphan drug for the treatment of AIDS. Now what that means is that there's not enough money, enough research money and development money for a drug company to go in and turn this into a drug, and so it kind of gets a fast track with the FDA if somebody wants to work with this and try and develop something. The problem is that it's a natural substance, and so it's very hard for people to try and patent and sell this, and nobody else can do it. Not a lot of money there, but of course we now have that for you. Glutathione is also used to detoxify various chemicals from the body. A deficiency in this can be caused by a number of conditions that would increase your need for glutathione, such as diabetes, low sperm count, liver disease, cataracts, HIV, respiratory distress syndrome, cancer, and idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. And as you might expect, one of the big antagonists to this is cigarette smoking. If you are a smoker or you're around secondhand smoke, that greatly depletes your supply of glutathione. Glutathione, you can't eat me. And what this means is that supplementation with glutathione has been very difficult. Research shows that when it's taken orally, it's not well absorbed across the GI tract. In one study, they gave people 3 grams, that's 3,000 milligrams of glutathione, and they couldn't see any significant change in the serum levels of glutathione in the body. And this is because the glutathione is destroyed in the GI system, so you can't take any of the typical pills that are out there or the liquids because it's not absorbed. There's also very little evidence that glutathione, actually there's no evidence, that people can take glutathione to help with whitening of the skin. That's something that has become somewhat popular in Asia in recent years, but all of the literature suggests that it's really not possible to do that. Then we have our SOD in the extranol 24. And this enzyme is superoxide dismutase. It catalyzes the dismutation of superoxide into oxygen and hydrogen peroxide, which renders it neutral. And it is a primary antioxidant in the defense of all cells exposed to oxygen. So our SOD, this primary antioxidant, it's been used for arthritis and other joint disorders. It's for possible side effects from different cancer treatments, prostate problems, Peyronie's disease, ALS. It helps prevent injury to transplant organs during surgery, and it can prevent lung problems in premature infants. This is a FARD scale. And it is used, you know, it's a little different than maybe a bar graph or, you know, a pi circle. It's one of the ways of looking at things. And they've looked at the effects of taking SOD on a number of factors versus a placebo. And what they find is that the super ORAC melon SOD supplementation has a really positive effect on perceived stress and quality of life, both physical and mental health, both physical and cognitive performance. It's also very good for sleep troubles, but it doesn't cause sleepiness. Now, this is very important because a lot of supplements, or certainly the drugs that are out there, when you take them, they make you sleepy. This doesn't make you sleepy, but it does help you sleep better at night. So the super ORAC melon extract can be used as a physical and cognitive tonic for healthy people. And to ensure that you get this, that you can take this orally, that it's going to be absorbed across the GI wall, we have a patented layering technology. This is a very special, patented, all-vegetable coating. It's non-genetically modified organism. This protects the melon SOD from acidic pH of the gastric juices. It ensures the bioavailability of the SOD and the glutathione in the body. Oxidative stress, this has been for years one of the keys to what we think makes us get old. It's a main causative factor for chronic inflammation, arthritis, ALS, cancer, pulmonary edema, obesity, cataracts, macular degeneration, and accelerated aging. It's been linked to diabetes, kidney disease, cardiovascular disease, rheumatism, and neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's disease. Here we have a look at how this works. We have on the one side stress affecting the body, and this stress can be from ultraviolet light, it can be from chemicals, either on us or in us, something we're eating, a poor diet that we're eating, physical activity which increases the production of free radicals, any kind of stress on the body. That causes a release of these reactive oxygen species, the ROO, or sometimes called the ROS. Now, usually when we're talking about fighting free radicals, we're talking about secondary antioxidants, vitamin A, C, E, and polyphenols. Of course, these are very important. They're found in our food, and they help keep us younger. They help fight off this aging, this degeneration. And you measure these by the ORAC score. However, the oxygen radical absorbance capacity test only measures one free radical, and there's thousands. And there have to be different tests to measure the different ones. So now, in addition to the ORAC, there's an L-ORAC and there's an H-ORAC, but each of those only measures one. What's really important now is the S-ORAC. This is the super ORAC. And rather than checking on these secondary antioxidants, it's a primary antioxidant. The primary antioxidants are the SOD and the glutathione. These stop the breakdown in the first place of these free radicals before they spread. They become much more powerful. So we have millions and billions. SOD has a powerful and efficient antioxidant activity. The one SOD molecule can eliminate thousands of these free radical molecules. So 1 IU of SOD catalyzes the elimination of 1 micromole of free radical oxygen per minute. And it has a life of several days. So that means it's going to eliminate billions of free radical molecules. When we want to compare this, Brandon likes to do our dare to compare. And so if we look at this, here we see Sea Silver, Noni, Zango, Monavi, and Vibe. And these are from the websites that we've been able to see what they say their ORAC score is. Zango has a score of about 540. Monavi and Vibe each say they're around 3,000. Now I want to point out a couple things here, though. And one is Vibe shouldn't be on this chart. Vibe likes to compare itself to these other things. But Vibe is a vitamin mineral product. Vibe would be something we would compare to Ultra Vitality. And Ultra Vitality score, just in case you wanted to know, was 250,000. Kind of blows that away. So these other things, these are juice products. And these are things that we would compare to Genesis. And so Mona V says that they're incredibly high with 3,000, where you see the Zango, the Noni, and the Sea Silver barely, come very high up on the scale. But when we compare these to our new Genesis with Extranol 24, if you look really hard, you can see there's a little blip up there for Vibe and Mona V. The others you can't see them at all. We really blow it away. But when we're talking numbers about this big, it's really hard to, get your head around it. So our Extranol 24, our super antioxidants, when we look at this, vitamin C, E, zinc, polyphenols, these are all secondary antioxidants. One vitamin C can knock out one free radical. It's a 1-to-1 ratio. One vitamin E can knock out one free radical. One anything knocks out one free radical if it's a secondary antioxidant. SOD is a primary antioxidant, though, and it's fully active not just once, but it'll work over and over and over again for 24 to 48 hours. So Symmetry's Extranol 24 S-ORAC extract inactivates 1 billion plus free radical molecules. It's working every minute of every hour for at least 24 hours. The problem is, it's hard for us to get our heads around numbers as big as 1 billion. So let's do the math. I worked with some folks at the University of Chicago Math Department, PhD math folks. It took them 2 days to come up with these numbers for me so that we could kind of give you a representation of some volume. So obviously a 1-to-1 ratio, that's easy to understand. There are some products that say that they have an ORAC score of 3,000. 3,000 would look like this. However, our Extranol 24, an equivalent amount would be 400,000. And 400,000 would look like this. So we have them versus us. Except this isn't really us, because we really have in excess of 1 billion because of the amount of Extranol 24. And this is what 1 billion looks like. So now it's them or us. Symmetry is about synergy. We're non-reductionist science making non-reductionist products for health and longevity. Symmetry's super antioxidant, Extranol 24, takes us into the next generation beyond resveratrol. Genesis is everything it was, all the resveratrol, all the ellagic acid, but now with Extranol 24, Genesis, making good health contagious.